Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Frazer Clarke has been left, in his own words, fuming following the matchmaking for his most recent performance, which was on the Smith-McQueen card. So this fight ended in a round. There were two so-called knockdowns, and we'll come to that. But Frazer Clarke, direct message to those involved in his career, including his promoter Pencho, do better. So this looked farcical from the outset when the bell went for round one. You had Frazer Clarke coming out, pressing forward, and Pencho Tsvetkov, his opponent, who was 7-0 coming into this one, looked like a deer in the headlights. Didn't look like he wanted to be there, looked like he wanted to be anywhere else except on the end of Frazer Clarke's punches. And there was a body shot that came in, and he drops to his haunches, not all the way down to the canvas, didn't touch down, but it's ruled a knockdown, and the replay showed later on that it didn't even really land. It was partially caught on the sort of arm and elbow area. And where the fight ended, and this is a minute into the fight, Frazer Clarke sort of bails up Tsvetkov into a corner, starts to let his hands go, and Tsvetkov just sort of drops and sort of slumps into the ropes. Didn't really sort of take any punishment. The referee sees that Tsvetkov is in no real state to, I guess, continue, because he wasn't hurt. He just didn't want to be there. And it's waved off. And Frazer Clarke looked very unhappy. And this is just before he had his hand raised. He doesn't look like he's a happy man. He said something to the commentators, and then he went off in his post-fight interview. And so he said literally that he was fuming. He apologized to the fans that had traveled from all over the place to see him. He said, that's not acceptable. And he said, it's not my fault. People have got to do better. And I take that as a shot from him to Pencho saying, come on, man. And this is not the first time that Frazer Clarke has had sort of poor matchmaking in his early young pro career. Remember, they threw him in with that Jake Darnell at a few days' notice, and that was a complete mismatch and farcical matchup as well. Remembering, they've been talking about wanting to move Clarke, build Clarke, and have him in a sort of a better level of prospect fight so he can develop quicker. But we're not seeing that. If anything, he's getting sort of worse matchmaking than typical prospects. It was clear and evident to anyone that Tsvetkov was overmatched, that he didn't want to be there. And the knockdowns, as it were, embarrassing. And he said, look, he shouldn't have been in the ring with me. He said, it's dangerous. And he said, I can't take no more of that. And he also added that he was fuming, that he ate 2 jabs. And clearly reading the room on this, Pencho, who was next to Clarke and pulled into the interview, he said, it was embarrassing. And he said, I'm annoyed that I had to pay for it. But he said, look, he will be out again soon. And then later in the interview, he said, look, when I get Frazer Clarke onto the October the 29th card that is headlined by Hughie Fury and Michael Hunter in Birmingham. So at least Clarke, who said he wants to take a couple of weeks off just to sort of recoup, after a hard training camp, at least he's going to be out again soon, because he should be, because he didn't get anything out of that, and we don't know any more about Frazer Clarke. I do have some questions about Clarke and how far he can go, but none of them can be answered until we see him in with someone who's a little bit durable, who's throwing punches back with some aggression, and can actually start to test him. And we're not expecting the test to all come at once and to everything to be too much for him. And even Clarke sort of said, where are all these prospects, these guys that help prospects? You can go through those incremental steps. He said, where have they all gone? I actually do think that they still exist, but I also think it probably comes down to money. How much are they willing to invest into getting some of these fights? And it does seem that journeymen, in some cases, are expecting a lot more dough these days to get in for, with some of these prospects that are coming up. But they need to do better. It was embarrassing. It was farcical, if you can call those knockdowns, if you can call that a fight, because it was all over in a minute and nothing really happened. We don't know any more about Frazer Clarke, and we're none the wiser. That was meant to be scheduled to go for 6 rounds. Obviously, we probably thought maybe it won't, but for a guy with a 7-0 record, he was exceptionally poor. And I said in the video in the lead up to this one, Looked at his record, it looked pretty thin, and I wasn't expecting much. And actually, I think my expectations were more than met, because that was embarrassing. Very embarrassing for Sky and Boxer. The commentators were absolutely going in on it as well. Adam Smith and Matthew Macklin describing it as terrible and a waste of time. And they're the ones that contract boxers, so they can't be happy with that. And obviously Sky wants a better product, because fans don't want to see that kind of garbage, because it was garbage. It was terrible. It was a waste of time, to sum up the commentators. And Frazer Clarke, I can understand why he's fuming. They've got to do better. It's all well and good for Ben Shalom to say I'm embarrassed by that, but actually invest in this guy's career. Don't be slinging him in at a few days' notice against these no-hopers, because he's just not going to get anything out of it. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.